I have been hosting cars on Turo for 8 years and running a Turo community for most of that time. During the years, I find that people often end up quitting their Turo businesses because of this one thing. They take their one car that they own and they list it on Turo without the proper insurance in place. Next thing you know, that one car that they had gets into an accident and they find out that they don't have coverage. They get stuck footing the bill and taking on too much financial risk, leading them to quit and even worse, sometimes in debt and carless. Don't let this happen to you. In this video, I'm going to guide you on how to insure your cars so that they have adequate coverage both on and off the platform. Now that is the important distinction right there. When running a Turo business, you need to look at insurance in two ways specifically to make sure that you have that adequate protection. First, do you have proper coverage on the vehicle when it's not being rented out on Turo and when you are driving that same car? And second, do you have enough insurance coverage when your car is out on a rental in case something goes wrong with the renter? For most people, the answer to this question is no, because insurance can be hard to understand when it comes to car sharing platforms like Turo and the legalities of coverage for car sharing. So let's dive into getting you properly insured both on and off the platform. Today's video is sponsored by LULA, the leading provider for affordable insurance solutions for car sharing hosts, and more on that later. All right, so how do we get actual insurance coverage when you are driving your Turo car and it's not being rented out? The problem is that most people maintain personal insurance coverage on their Turo cars, meaning they use traditional providers like Geico, Mercury, Progressive, as they would for any normal personal use car. The reason why this is a problem is because your personal insurance provider does not consider your vehicle a personal car when you are also sharing it on Turo. So over the years, many hosts have experienced their personal policies dropping their coverage once they find out that these cars are being used for Turo. As Turo becomes more popular, more and more insurance companies are catching on to this trend, making it a risky move for hosts. When a car is used to earn money on Turo, that is considered by insurance providers as commercial use. And commercial use vehicles need, you guessed it, commercial insurance. So this is where it really becomes a gray area and people kind of don't fully understand, well, okay, then what kind of commercial insurance am I supposed to have? Now, unfortunately, commercial insurance as it is traditionally known is extremely expensive. And in many cases, it's not a feasible option for Turo hosts due to the cost. According to Car and Driver, commercial insurance on a vehicle can cost thousands of dollars per year, and that's why as hosts, it's really hard to opt in for that. Now, thankfully, over the years, some providers have innovated to provide solutions for car sharing platforms like Turo and GetAround. There are now options available for both hosts that are affordable and provide adequate coverage to protect us in the event of an accident or incident while we're driving our own cars. For example, we have our sponsor today, LULA. LULA is a technology company that partners with insurance carriers to tailor insurance solutions and coverages specific for Turo hosts and car sharing businesses. LULA has partnered with Turo and GetAround and is endorsed as the leading provider of affordable insurance solutions for hosts. Yay, finally, something that we can utilize. Their off-rental program is backed by State National, an A-rated insurance carrier, and they operate in almost every state across the country. With their quick and easy sign-up process, your vehicles can be approved same day and your account can be activated within 24 hours. You'll also get access to an insurance dashboard on the LULA portal where you can easily manage claims, add vehicles to your policy, and access important insurance documents. LULA offers full coverage, liability plus comprehensive and collision for only $79 a month. So you can already see it's a huge difference in price. LULA accepts vehicles up to $75,000 in value, and deductibles range from $1,000 to $3,000 per incident. Now, ORP stands for off rental protection and only covers the vehicle while it's off rent. This is why the program is so affordable, because LULA does not charge for on rent insurance, which hosts already get from Turo and GetAround. That's why this program makes so much sense. To join the program, vehicles must be equipped with a telematics device. So Bouncy and Zuby are the preferred providers, which so many of us already use. Now you can go ahead and visit apply.lularentals.com to begin the application process. From there, you can go through LULA's self-service onboarding flow and request to speak with a representative if you need it. I'll also post all the links down in the description below. All right, so now that we understand how to properly insure ourselves with a tailor-made solution that's affordable and great for Turo hosts, let's take a look at how insurance works when our cars are actually out on Turo rentals. So with that, we're gonna talk about what Turo calls their host protection plans, which kick in when somebody actually rents your car off the platform, and we're gonna go over exactly how your coverage works. Now, Turo offers 5 host protection plans to cover any damages, accidents, or incidents that may take place while your car is out on a rental. Now, people always ask me, how does it work when it comes to physical damage, third-party liability, etc., etc.? So I'm going to break down the different parts of coverage you get and which host protection plan that I would personally recommend to you guys if you're getting started on Turo or if you're already a host. Okay, we're gonna start with liability coverage because people always ask me what happens if my renter damages somebody else's property or a third party gets host. How do I have coverage? How am I protected? Now that's what we call liability coverage. And so I'm gonna read you through this because it's very important to get some clarity on this. So third party liability insurance protects hosts from legal exposure for claims of bodily injury or property damage to a third party, meaning something or someone else that may occur during a guest trip with your car. For instance, if your guest hits a parked car when driving your car, you would be covered for $750,000 by the liability insurance policy provided by Travelers for any claims made by the owner of the parked car. The Travelers policy would not cover any damage to your own car. See the physical damage section to learn about reimbursements for damages to your car. So basically, Turo, as a host, you get that third-party liability coverage, and the supplier of that, or the provider for that, if you will, is Travelers Insurance. So they partner with Turo, and they give you up to $750,000. Now, what happens beyond that limit, I don't know, to be honest. It's not something I've ever experienced or I've ever seen anyone else experience, but let's knock on wood that we never find ourselves in that position. So now let's talk about physical damage, and that's, what coverage do you get if a renter is out with your car and they crash it? Maybe they run into a pole, maybe they hit someone else, a million different things can go wrong, and they inevitably do, so you want to understand what that coverage looks like. Now, reading off of Turo's site, the host protection plans in the US also address the allocation of the financial consequences of physical damage to your car during the trip. Very legal language we see here. Physical damage contractual reimbursements from Turo applies to your vehicle in the event of a collision, when 2 vehicles hit each other or when a single vehicle hits an object. Sorry, I think it's just funny how they wrote this. And most comprehensive events, theft, fire, animal impacts, vandalism, falling objects, etc. during the trip, and is subject to terms and exclusions. And any part of the physical damage is not covered by insurance, including, for example, a guest personal insurance or third-party insurance. Each protection plan reflects the agreement between the host and Turo as to how to fairly allocate responsibility for the financial consequences of that physical damage. Turo is not an insurance company and does not have insurance for physical damage to your vehicle. Okay, so this is a lot of sort of literature that was written to really protect them legally. Now, the reason why Turo calls their host protection plans and not insurance is because technically they are not an insurance provider, but it does in fact work in the same way and provides you coverage in the same way that insurance does. So they have, whatever legalities they have on the back end, and that's why they have to represent it like that. But basically, in short, what they are saying is if you have one of their host protection plans, which we're going to go over right now, you are covered for physical damage, right? As long as you follow all of their protocols. So if there's theft, vandalism, animal impact, a tree falls on your car, your renter crashes into a building, if any of these things happen, you will have physical damage coverage up to the actual cash value of your vehicle. So that's very important to note. It is, of course, like any other insurance company, going to pay out up to the actual cash value. So what your car is worth in the present moment of time prior to any damages. Now, they have 5 host protection plans, and there are some very key distinctions that you need to be aware of. So let's break them down. Now, we're gonna start off with a 60% plan. And it's 60% because that means that whatever your day rate is, let's say you rent your car out for $100 per day. Now, Turo is going to take 40% of that. So they are going to take $40 from every $100 that you earn, and you get to keep 60. Now, that $40 that you're paying Turo is in fact to get that host protection. Now, included in the 60% plan is you get 60% of the trip price, which actually is the day rate, not the total trip price, because that includes taxes and fees, which Turo keeps most of that. So this is actually your day rate. So it's very important to clarify that. You have that $750,000 in third-party liability insurance. Turo pays 100% of eligible cost. No deductible, includes exterior wear and tear reimbursements, includes loss of hosting income during repair, or $50 per day for a replacement vehicle up to a 10-day maximum. Now, the key thing to note here, and I've had the 60% plan before, is that you have no deductible. Deductibles are so important to understand in the Turo world because they don't work as you would think, right? If your renter takes your car and they get into an accident, they are at fault. Obviously, they're the one who caused the damage, not you. But if you file that claim with your Turo host protection plan, you are going to be responsible for whatever deductible comes with your host protection plan, no matter what, no matter who's at fault, because your coverage for physical damages comes from your host protection plan. So the beauty of the 60% plan is that there is no deductible, but in exchange for that, you are giving up more of your day rate by 40%, right, to have all that coverage. Now, you also do get exterior wear and tear, which is a plus side of the 60% plan, because any plan that is above that 60% plan, you do not get exterior wear and tear. So that's really any damages, dings and dents and scratches and scrapes on the exterior of your car that are below 3 inches. Now, every other plan is you get reimbursement for anything above 3 inches. So that's a lot of small things that can go missed. So that is essentially what you are paying a premium for. Now, the 75% plan, which is my favorite plan, the one plan that I have spent the most time on as a host, even though I've fluctuated throughout the years and depending on my cars, this I find is really a sweet spot. So you get to earn 75% of your day rate. So again, if your car is $100 per day, you get to keep 75, and you give Turo $25 out of that day rate. And in exchange for that, you still get the same third-party liability insurance. Turo pays 100% of the physical damage cost other than your deductible. And the deductible on this plan is $250. So they give a really good example here of how exactly this works. And I just want to share this with you guys. So for instance, if your guest has a fender bender while driving your car, the eligible damage cost to your car is $750, and you choose the 70% plan, which, by the way, they no longer have. They need to update their website. You'd be responsible for the first $250 damages, and Turo would pick up the remaining $500. So that's in a case where it's $750 in damages. You can see where they will deduct that $250 and only cover anything above your deductible. So very important to note, because you are going to come out of pocket $250 on that incident. Now, let's say that the damage cost of your car was only $100. You'd be responsible for the entire damage bill unless you resolve the claim directly with your guest. So if the cost of damage is $100, but your deductible is $250, well then, you're gonna come out of pocket for it because your deductible is higher than the damage cost. Now, alternatively, you can try to resolve it with your guest directly, bypass your host protection plan, and get full payment for that if your guest is willing to work with you. So that's how those deductibles work. Now, as we go through the higher plans, you'll see here on the 80% plan, you get to keep 80% of your trip price. your day rate, and you get that same third-party liability insurance, but your deductible now bumps up to $750. So, the deductibles get heftier as you keep more of your day rate, and Turo takes less of the revenue share from you. Then we have the 85% plan, where your deductible goes all the way up to $1,625. So you really have to be prepared. And then there is the 90% plan. So for every $100 you make, you get to keep $90 of that, but your deductible is then $2,500. So for me personally, if you are new, you're starting out on Turo, I think the really nice balance between, the different host protection plans and deductibles is that 75% plan, because the deductible is low enough to where it's still manageable if you have to come out of pocket, and oftentimes damages can be far above that amount, but it's also still, you get a lot of coverage and you get a lot of your day rate, right? So you want to make sure it's worth your time in terms of profitability. Now, I think that 60% plan, while it's great in terms of that you get full coverage, no deductible, but you are really giving up a lot of your day rate. So it gets really hard to make a decent amount of money when you are sharing so much revenue with Turo. So in my personal opinion, I think that 75% plan is the sweet spot. And what you can do over time, which I see a lot of people do, and I've done it myself, is as you build up your runway, your reserve, your savings, right? And you can set aside a little crash fund, if you will, enough to cover the deductibles on some of the higher plans. So like that $1,625 deductible, that $2,500 deductible if you're on the 90% plan. Once you have that in savings, then you can potentially change your host protection plan to one of those higher levels, right? And take the risk of the higher deductible, but knowing that you set aside some of your profits so that you have that in savings should the car get into an accident and you have to foot the bill on your deductible. So that's kind of how you can be dynamic with your host protection plans as time goes on. It can actually mathematically make sense to be on one of the higher plans, only if you plan for it and you make sure that you are minimizing any downside risk. Now, if you're like, I just don't want to take that risk, I don't want to have to think about it, I don't want to have to put that money away, that's why I recommend that 75% plan, because it's just really easy to digest. You know exactly what to expect. You get most of the coverage and your deductible is quite low. Also, putting $250 aside is much easier than having to put, $1,600 or $2,500 aside. So this is where the little nuances come in place. Now, I am going to put the links down in the description below for all of these different insurance options that I've suggested, that I've heard Turo hosts use throughout the years, but please do make sure that you have adequate coverage and that you understand in a very black and white manner how insurance works for Turo. That way you have coverage when you are driving your cars, which we all do, and then you are properly covered through your host protection plans when your cars are being rented out on Turo. Now, if you want to learn more about, how exactly all of this works and how you should structure yourself and set yourself up, check out my website, powerhost.club, where I have a full training on exactly how to start, run, and grow your Turo operation.